season, and a lot of that does come down to the draft and what they actually picked for themselves. So we see a couple of the bans coming through already. Renekton off the table, Nidalee off the table, Pantheon and Olaf as the next two bans here. So the crazy thing about this meta right now, Crumbs, is I feel like there's just no way to know what the top priority picks are. It feels like there's like 5 must bans right off the bat, and no matter what you ban, you're going to get priority picks on blue side or red side.
It's what happens when you just get so many champions. We got to the point where now priority picks aren't really a thing. It's more like, can you play it well? Because there's a lot of champions that you can play well and pull off. So getting rid of already of 2 champions that Tenacity has played well, even though they had a rough game yesterday, I think is a good start for Tapoon there with Renekton, Camille, and Nidalee being removed. I mean, that is a full focus to the top side of the 100 Thieves team.
And I think it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at how Academy or 100 Thieves Academy likes to play, pinching Tenacity's champ pool, not only just the meta picks, but also just him as a player, trying to limit his ability to impact the lane on his own and with a jungle synergy. But they go for that Graves first pick here, putting priority on the jungle option for Immortals Academy. Potluck has had great performances on this pick in the past, and there's so much variety you can go with the build path right now. You can go for the Drain Tank build, you can go for that the more crit focused build either way. But answers of Kai'Sa and the Kindred from 100 Thieves Academy.
Graves is not a high priority jungler right now. Yeah, he's viable, but first picking Graves feels very difficult to pull off, or at least much harder than it was last season. With the amount of nerfs that he's received, it's a lot easier to fight in the jungle from these other champions. So Kenvi, if he gets past those 4 marks, you're already going to be in a position to really outrange a lot of what IMT is building in. This is a really good setup that they've already gone for, and I really appreciate this because so many times we see the priority of Orianna as a champion be prioritized over the fact that Syndra has setup. And so you would have paid Orianna with a Graves and you have good late game, but who's setting up anybody? You never get to that point. But with Syndra, you actually now have Scatter the Weak to set up your Graves, which can be a really deadly combo with the Jhin as well. A deadly flourish from the bot lane roaming into mid lane. Suddenly you got somebody locked down for 3 seconds just out of nowhere.
A lot of lockdown, a lot of pick potential with Graves just pumping out damage from Immortals Academy. But the first 3 picks from 100 Thieves Academy, much more focused on the late game. A lot of scaling options here. Kindred does take a little bit of time going for those marks and can scale very well. The Ornn to help supplement that. We all know Kai'Sa is a monster in the scaling department. So it seems like just right off the bat, we'll have to wait to see what the final 2 picks for each team are, but 100 Thieves Academy opting more for a late game, slower style of play, whereas Immortals Academy, they're on a clock here just for the first 3 picks. They're going to want to put the pedal to the metal and try and make some things happen specifically around that mid lane.
Absolutely. The mid lane is a huge focal point. I think banning out the mid laners is a great move here because if the Graves and Syndra can join the 2v2 and take over the game, you deny the marks from Kindred. And if Kindred never gets off with her marks, you actually now really slow down this composition to hit that late game that they're really desperately trying to hit with Ornn, Kindred, Kai'Sa. So if the mid 2v2 of Potluck and Pretty recognizes, hey, there is a lane that needs to be the focal point for us to win and prevent 100 Thieves' game plan from coming true. The bans already say that they know what to focus on, and so far, I like what I'm seeing out of both teams because they both get a sense for what the others is trying to do, and they're trying to stop them because 100 Thieves is also banning champions like Gragas, who can be a big detriment to ultimates like Kindred.
Interesting to see here the lock-in of the Zoe here from 100 Thieves Academy. I thought that they might hold that mid lane pick a little bit longer so that they can get a priority support to pair with their Kai'Sa, something along the lines of the Leona potentially, because that can also pair very well with the Jhin. But no, they're leaving the support options or the pool a little bit bigger for Immortals Academy to lock in something else. Zoe into Syndra though, I mean, I understand it. You get that extra range, you can have some safety, but it is still a very dangerous lane because Zoe doesn't have that much mobility, and we were already talking about if Syndra can hit that Scatter the Weak and Graves is there, Zoe will get popped. But there's the Nara locked in here for Immortals Academy. No big surprise, it does outrange the Ornn in the top lane and can do just fine scaling as well with those recent buffs just rising in popularity.
This Nara will just want to be a little bully, be left by himself in the 1v1 against the Ornn, and it is 0 seconds, unfortunately, not going to get the Annie. It is going to be the Rel, but a blind pick Rel, Kangas. That is bold. But Rel isn't that strong just yet, but they feel confident with the Jhin matchup to be able to handle Kai'Sa and whatever combination 100 Thieves goes for, because they're likely going to go for something tanky, something late game, lots of crowd control. I think they have an option for some Enchanter if they want to take a little more aggression to the bottom lane, but what will Poom really go for? Yeah, just keep it simple, Leona.
I think the Leona makes a lot of sense. You're enabling your Kai'Sa that much more. It's more engagement options. With the Ornn and Leona, that's a lot of ranged engage. So Kai'Sa will have a lot of ability to get onto these backlines. And you look at Immortals Academy, Syndra's looking real juicy now. I mean, we talked about if Syndra's ahead and if you're able to make proactive plays, but she also can really struggle if an assassin gets on top of her. So Kai'Sa jumping on there, she doesn't have that Scout of the Week. Could be in some trouble. But the Rel in particular, this is a champion that I love. I love playing her, but man, she just doesn't feel as good as Leona. It's like they're trying to do basically the same thing, but it just feels like Leona still does it better. And when Leona was on the table, I still would have liked that more for Immortals Academy's draft here.
It's tough to go with a blind Leona, no matter how good she is, because you got picks like Maokai in the support role that are really starting to come up that just can be such a nuisance for a pick like her. And in the Rel versus Leona matchup, you got champions that are both trying to go in, except one has a way tankier shield. Right, the Leona is way tankier than Joey and can actually pick somebody without putting her face in it, which I think is a really big aspect of Leona's ultimate, whereas Rel has to be in the mix, and that can put her in harm's way. Not the same for Leona.
Exactly, and when you're jumping in harm's way, you're up against that Kindred, you're up against the Ornn and the Leona. You're diving into a lot of threats that can blow you up and then also tank up all of your team's damage. But we're loaded onto the Rift for game number 1, Immortals Academy versus 100 Thieves Academy. The only game we'll get today with 2 undefeated teams against each other. Yes, I know we've only played 1 game so far, but still, I'm going to say it. Pretty standard, slow start here to get things going. So since there'll be no early action crumbs, I like to take this time of the game to just go over expectations. What do we think is going to be the focus of these teams going into this early game? Because when I'm looking at the Kindred, again, we highlighted it before, it takes a little bit of time to scale, can look for early games potentially, but I'm just not seeing a lane that the Kindred would look for, but Potluck does have some options to look for early.
Well, we got an invade happening right away. IMT is taking advantage of the double range top lane to go for an invade on the red side, and they're going to find the Kindred. So already we're off to an explosive start, and there's a ward to spot them.
Yeah, they're spotted. Knock up from Tenacity onto Tapoon. Might have to flash here. Pretty has joined in. Tapoon's taking a lot of damage, and that will be first blood over to Kenvi. A botched late invade. They were spotted, and more members of 100 Thieves means that that's an early first blood.
That is so good. That ward from Tenacity to spot the invade from topside too. That is really wild, because normally you wouldn't think to ward that location, but they put it in a place where if they invaded through top or through the ramp, they would have been spotted. And the roam from Ryoma to quickly respond and hit that Q made the world of difference. Look at that. This is just a great location there. And once this happens, they already need to run, but they got engaged on instantly. The only thing they can walk away from here is that, all right, Tenacity started with his E, but that's not such a big deal when the Nara has blown his flash.
And now, I was talking about Kenvi probably looking to farm up, the Kindred not looking for any crazy early plays. Well, Tapoon doesn't have flash or TP. I know that getting the Ornn extra head might not be the best play, but you could look for a potential gank up there now, because that would be such a big punish onto Tapoon. But regardless, the gold going onto Kenvi is the big thing right there. Kindred now getting a much faster start, going for a pretty healthy clear so far, and we'll see where the first mark is going to spawn on these scuttles, but just can be, having this little acceleration towards the build will help 100 Thieves Academy get to that mid-game, late-game spike even that much faster. But there's still opportunities for Immortals Academy to, of course, come back from that early play. And it'll come down to just making the right moves.
He should pass topside here, because the Ornn is with priority and the bottom lane is hard pushed in. So he's not going to get his mark, but he might be able to get the crab. And with mid lane priority as well, I think this is an opportunity for Kenvi to concede both crabs. It's just not viable here. Because if Syndra and Gnar choose to leave their lane to defend the top scuttle, they can. So it's not worth it for him to go for this. And in fact, it might be better if he just goes for a full clear and then attempts it. Instead, he's going to try to go over the wall avoid any vision and sneak this crab. It just might
Yeah.
work, or he'll choose to go for a gank against the
Oh.
flashless Gnar. Yep.
Spotted on the ward, but he might still commit to it. Nope, decides to clear the ward instead. Tapoon, a little too hard to get onto that baby Gnar right there, but because he goes for the ward, goes for the gank instead, this means that Potluck can just go for that scuttle. That is double scuttle over to Immortals Academy. A very strong early game start here for the jungler.
Not just double scuttle, Kangas. It got spotted out, so they know that Kenvi was at Krugs as well, that he had to go there afterwards because that's the route that he had with the amount of camps left. So him moving into that river, looking for that gank, did cost him a bit of pacing that now Graves gets to be ahead of, because Graves has now recalled and he's still in the top side, helping the Ornn crash this wave.
And Tapoon's got to realize that Kenvi has to be up here. I'm surprised he walked up like that. Still doesn't have the flash. This is probably just another kill. Oh, the double stun flash from Tenacity.
Oh, no!
Will get the kill. Oh, no! Why did you charge the turret? Oh! Slight mechanical misplay means it's a trade of kills. Both come out with one.
Oh, you hate to see it. They had a great idea there, knowing that they could both flash and get the kill, but then overkill with the E. Really not necessary, and what would have been a huge punish there, and now it just gets to be a wave crash, really. In fact, I think the Gnar ends up getting more of that than the Ornn.
Yeah, I actually think that that's great for Tapoon right there. He trades a kill. That's more time spent from Kenvi on the top side, which means that Potluck now gets to get even further ahead in his own jungle clear. I guess Kenvi's camps were all down, so now they're spawning. He can just go clear them now. But first off, it was a mistake for Tapoon to even walk up to that bush. You know Kenvi's going to be on the top side.
He thought he'd bait. Yeah, so I get what Tapoon was thinking. He's like, oh, he has to have base, right? Why would he waste so much time here? He can either be base or trying to help crash the wave. So I think because the wave was pushing back, he was looking to ward it and try to hold the freeze and try to get an advantage that way. He's already having a pretty big CS lead, so I can see where Gnar's mindset was at. It's just unfortunate that the bet he took did not pay off.
Well, regardless, that's still more gold into 100 Thieves and Tenacity getting that kill. So at least they did get it, you know. Went a little over-eager on the dive, but now things have evened out again a little bit here. Kenvi rushing towards that level 6 is actually caught up to Potluck's farming speed, despite, you know, being much more active in trying to make things happen in these lanes, which a little surprising to me that Potluck has fallen slightly behind in his jungle clear. I thought that the Graves just power farming would be able to shove past the Kindred, but now we might see a fight here as Potluck tries to chase down Andy Bendy. There's on the smoke screen. Dragon has been started here by 100 Thieves Academy. They're taking some damage. The aggro of the Dragon is on them. Now it turns back on to Potluck. TP coming in onto the bottom lane. Tenacity will be here. Level 6. Ornhorn comes down. They jump onto Joey. Now the Ornhorn onto Keith. It's just the support traded for right now. Tenacity, looking for the re-engage onto Keith. Good flash out of Jin. Means that he is still alive, is
so
still
close.
safe. Yeah, the Paddle Star almost catching out Keith right there, but not quite. And Dragon should go over to 100 Thieves Academy.
So 100 Thieves starts the Dragon just because they have mid-prio and a little bit of shove into the bottom lane, and they think this should be enough. And it actually turns out to put the 100 Thieves team in a great position for a teleport from Tenacity. So whether that was a planned move or not, the response to have the Ornn join up was a really smart move because they have a top lane teleport advantage. All that action that we'd seen prior in the top lane yielded that TP advantage, and then 100 Thieves used it. It was a bit sloppy, but they got the Dragon in the end and the kills they wanted.
The trade for that is, of course, Tapoon getting now 20 CS up over his lane opponent, but let's take another look here at this really kind of scrappy fight that starts off before they actually find the pick.
Yeah, the Zoe is roaming first, so already 100 Thieves is fine, just stalling and buying time, and then when the Ornn arrives and there's level 6, that's when IMT realizes they're in a world of trouble. Good flash here out of Keith to dodge out Tenacity's charge, and then the only thing missing would have been Ryoma getting this kill. I actually think the Paddle Star would have been enough because he had an Ever's Frost charge to also shoot out.
Just barely out of range right now, but now we see Immortals Academy quicker to the next objective. They're on this Rift Herald already. 100 Thieves Academy might actually contest this. Poom has roamed up from the bottom side. Ryoma's here as well. It will be a 4v4, but 100 Thieves Academy just don't find the right angle to get in there. Ooh, actually, they might get some damage onto Potluck. Nope, not quite enough. So it is objective secured for Immortals. And hey, I mean, that's something for them. They can get a little extra gold off of these plates that are still up for another couple minutes.
And they had to concede that because Jin was already there. The play that 100 Thieves made had a little cooldown, right? They got to reset. They have to base, recharge from the dive that went to the bottom lane. IMT did not have to do that. They already were out on the map by the time that 100 Thieves was leaving. So they got to put the Jin into the mid lane, and the Jin at level 6 is going to just do so much damage. We've talked so much about Jin's roaming ability to be able to influence these fights, and when he's there, you got to always count that there's a 4v5.
Tapoon taking a good chunk against Tenacity here on the top side. We also do see an invade actually happening on the bottom half of the map as well. Oh, wait. Oh, whoa. Hey, Tenacity. That was great job,
right,
buddy.
Then.
Trying to clear
he
that
likes
wave.
the sound. It's a good sound.
It was just trying to scare Tapoon away, you know. It's about sending the message. But there was an invade on the bottom side there. Kenby was able to steal away red buff from Potluck's jungle while that skirmish was happening on the top half of the map. And you see all this vision that they have down here as well. So Potluck should be spotted as blue buff is donated over to Ryoma. This is what I like to see out of 100 Thieves Academy. This is what you expect to see out of a team that's played together for a while. Support and jungle roaming together, getting wards down, stealing away camps, and just everyone communicating, being on the same page for these kinds of rotational plays.
So they are doing a good job in grouping up and finding that, except the vision game for IMT is pretty abysmal here. You take a look at the map and see what kind of control wards we're working with. 100 Thieves is far and away controlling that vision. You got the double controls on the bot side with the double regular wards as well to see quite a bit, and not only allow Ryoma to roam, but the bottom lane to feel confident, and then you even have a control ward protecting the top lane. Immortals has nothing really except the control ward on their side for the bottom lane from behind, and that's something that is a little bit odd for me to see, because you do want to have the Graves be very aggressive here because you have so many lanes constantly shoved up.
And I think a lot of that has to do with Joey not spending as much time in lane. We saw the Rel only just hit that Sightstone on the support item at 10 minutes, 30 seconds. It's kind of late timing, but because Joey's been roaming around a ton, they've been kind of scrappy in the early game here, despite there not being an excess amount of kills. Means that they just haven't been getting all those stacks for the wards, but going forward they should theoretically have more, as Potluck will most likely use this Rift Herald at top side. Yeah, it does drop it down here for Tapoon, gifting over that first turret gold over to the Gnar. I don't hate this play. The Gnar can use this gold very effectively and just keeping Tenacity shoved in this side lane.
So it looks like this is just a full split pushing Gnar at this point with the stride breaker, with the build. I think that's going to be the approach, and it's weird to see because so much of the Gnar buffs were about Mega Gnar. It really was not Mini Gnar. I believe the only Mini Gnar buff that he received is that his little jump now gives you increased attack speed more than before, and that's something that was rarely used that way, right? When you're jumping somebody aggressively, you already are hard winning that trade. So seeing this Gnar build come up despite it not receiving so many buffs, I think it's just people realize, hey, Mega Gnar could be strong, maybe Mini Gnar can be viable just as well.
And they also do still have that Rel option too. I feel like when Gnar is really the primary frontliner, the primary engage, which we have seen in some compositions, you kind of have to go for that tankier build, but when you have the Rel backup option that's already going to want to go in regardless, I don't hate this build either, but we'll see if it actually works out for them, as Dragon is the next priority for both of these teams. Immortals Academy trying to find a pick here. They actually do onto Ryoma. He does go golden to stay alive, but will it be enough? Tapoon now might be a little too far forward. The Kindred ultimate does go down. What a use of the ultimate there from Joey. And now it's just chaos right here, as 100 Thieves Academy are actually fighting back, but Immortals will not give up. Keith doing the damage on Jin. Potluck's still up, pretty from the back line, throwing out these orbs. They just can't get through the frontliners to get at Ryoma here. 100 Thieves Academy. Somehow Ryoma survived through all of that, but Immortals might still get the Dragon at the end of the day.
Talk about a messy fight there. From how many angles did people enter into the mid lane there? And even Tapoon didn't get his ultimate off, but there's a teleport from the Zoe and Ornn coming in. They are now back in the mix, but the Dragon has been taken, and so they just TP and walk away.
Yep, nothing gained for the use of those summoner spells. Potluck and Keith were quick enough with the Graves Jin combo to take down that Dragon very quickly. But yeah, that fight in the mid lane, it was not where you usually see those dragon fights happen. Oftentimes you see them happen when teams will, one team will push the wave in and then have to approach into the unwarded jungle where the other team is waiting for them to approach already on the dragon. But no, instead we saw Immortals say, no, we're just going to engage on them in the mid lane and try and force the fight there. And I guess you could say it did work out for them at the end of the day. They got the objective. It was a trade of kills. And they find themselves with just the slightest of gold advantages right now. But this game, Crumbs, this game is close, and it is definitely living up to the expectation that I had for it based on how yesterday's games went.
And so it started with Ryoma just being in no man's land, gets slowed down here, and then he gets stunned, and the stopwatch is huge. But then the big thing is, why Kenby putting himself in the middle of all of these teammates, everybody's aware that the fight is going to be comboed with the Kindred ultimate. So everybody's in anticipation of that. Rel sees it, uses her ultimate to try to CC people so that then when they come out of the ultimate, they are not actually damaging anybody else. But unfortunately, all the cooldowns were used earlier on the pick on Zoe, so they didn't have enough damage to follow up after that. So it's one big chaotic fight with no Mega Gnar ultimate still being used.
Really impressive watching the positioning of Pretty throughout that fight as well. Always staying at the edge of the damage, never quite in range for Kenby, for Ryoma to actually output all that damage. Andy Bendy getting baited in a little bit there. So, I mean, Pretty during his interview yesterday was saying, hey, he's only going to need one split in Academy before he's picked up by LCS. He was confident enough.
Wow.
And, yeah, those are some confident words. But, I mean, hey, if you keep having team fights like that, man, I'm starting to be a believer in you as well.
You
Immortals
have to believe
now,
it.
You got to believe
you have to be your biggest believer in Academy and anything. You got to be your biggest believer because no one else will. So if he says it, well, let's see him back it up because there's plenty of players that have done it before. It is by no means impossible. So if he's the guy to do it, well, more power to him because we need more Syndra players. Bjergsen's gone.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that EU mid laners have a pretty good reputation of coming in and just kind of making it to LCS right away. But, yeah, Orianna and Syndra definitely liking those mid lane mages here for Pretty's champion pool. But Rift Herald we did see picked up there by Immortals Academy. That's 2 Heralds throughout the game now. So they got 3 out of 4 neutral objectives secured. You like that out of Potluck, the returning jungler onto this roster, showing, hey, he still got it. There's a reason that, yeah, he's still only in Academy, but there's a reason that Immortals still want him on their roster right now. As now they might just fight Poom and Andy Bendy in their own jungle. Joey jumps over, teleport coming in. Andy Bendy is out. Now they might just turn attention onto Poom. Yeah, Leona's got no backup right there.
Oh.
Tries to flash to safety and will go down. But now Immortals in a kind of rough spot. They just dive Andy Bendy under the turret and say, yeah, we don't need to retreat through the jungle. We'll just go through your turret, 100 Thieves. And Pretty over the wall with a huge chunk out of Kenby. I don't know what you're doing here, 100 Thieves. I feel like, yeah, you just got to let this turret go down, try and catch the wave afterward. There's no more fight to be had.
They got completely surprised there. There's a top lane on the Gnar that the Ornn is not able to answer, and then they just did not know what to do when the Leona got caught up. Tapoon even jumped onto Andy Bendy, missed every spell onto the turret die. It didn't matter. Just chucking those ultimates out just to have him on cooldown and say that it's used because the move itself is good. This is kind of what League as a team ends up looking like, where it really doesn't matter how many spells you miss as long as everybody's in the same page and you're on the same mission. You can afford to make those mistakes. So you see that Kenby and Ryoma are so far away to collapse here, and with this TP here they cannot get in here. Getting in here is just a mistake. They need to run. Everybody needs to abandon ship. Instead they commit, double down, and so you lose Andy Bendy. Ryoma and Kenby are not in a position to get anything else. I think the correct response from them two here would have been to stay into the mid lane and shove that and try to get something in another lane because Ornn was not going to make it. They were always going to be at a disadvantage.
They were trying to find their way in, but once again, it was Pretty standing there on the Syndra 1v2 saying, nope, you cannot approach my team to help out your own. Either way, that's 2 turrets down. They get another Rift Herald charge, or at least another wave shoved into that bottom inhibitor turret. 100 Thieves Academy are bleeding across the map right now, and that gold lead that wasn't that big is growing in size. Joey does get chunked out here. That's pretty good for 100 Thieves Academy as the dragon is just coming up.
That might have been just enough. There's no teleport. There's no way for this Joey Rel to make it back onto the Rift. So if IMT wants it, it's either a steal or a 4v5. Potluck is poised to maybe look for a steal here. What the? What?
Okay. I guess Pretty just got caught in the mid lane. Andy Bendy gifted that kill, so 100 Thieves Academy, they might just get a kill and the dragon. Yeah, Immortals, they got no answer here.
That might have been a sleepy trouble bubble out of Ryoma there, because he burned Flash and Pretty did not have his. So I'm thinking maybe he Flash bubbled him in range of Andy Bendy, and by the time the stun connects, Kai'Sa flies in and you pop the Syndra.
Must be something like that. Hopefully we can get a replay at some point just to catch what exactly happened there. But, I mean, honestly, even without that kill, I think that dragon was going over to 100 Thieves Academy, just like you said, from chunking Joey out. There's no way for Joey to get back in. But, yeah, here's that replay. Oh, it was the bubble over the wall.
Called it. He didn't flash for it, but he flashed at the end for the for the paddle star.
Yep, that's what Zoe can do, everybody. You gotta watch those angles, you gotta watch those walls, and Pretty steps a little too far forward at the wrong moment and pays the price for it. Had a great game up until that point, still has the opportunity to bring back the game, but a few more picks like that means 100 Thieves Academy can get back into this game as they are stacking up these dragons. Now only 2 away from that dragon soul. Pretty big win condition for this team. Again, they're the scaling comp. They are comfortable going into the late game with things like Ornn item upgrades, with things like the scaling Kindred and Kai'Sa. So I really don't think that they're sweating too much right now with how this game is currently sitting.
I don't think so. I think they're very happy, like you say. Even the 3,000 gold deficit right now, because you have the dragons, you can ensure that you're going to keep this game going a little bit longer. Ooh, the stun, though.
Maybe it's Andy Bendy. Maybe they killed Kai'Sa. Not quite. Unleashed power does not do enough right there. Now it might be a re-engage from 100 Thieves Academy. Ooh, call the Forge God. Only lands on the Potluck. Was not even the target, but they get Flash out of Pretty. Now, can they stop Tenacity? Keith's trying to engage onto the tank. Ornn is going to take a long time to take down there, so no kills across the board, but these teams are ready to scrap it out. They know that if they get a big team fight win, they could look for that Baron potentially, even though it is still quite early on into the game. But hey, I mean, I like it. I'm entertained. There's not much to fight over, but hey, keep fighting, guys. Go for it.
Hey, that the teams are continuing to look for plays is always a good thing. You always want the engaged champions to be looking for something. And hey, if they don't miss it, it's fine. This is the early tournament of Academy. This is exactly where you want to see those plays happen. And I think that for IMT though, oh wait a minute, Pretty just
all alone. 1v3. Did they have to send this many out? Wait, he gets a double stun. Kenby should be able to chase this one down. Wait, he actually dodges the solar flare. Nope, not gonna be enough. Kenby does actually get that kill. That was a valiant effort, though.
He didn't have the gameplay button open. He did not have it. If he would have been able to press R, I think he would have actually been able to live on that.
He at least would have forced Kenby's ult and could have stayed in there for a little bit longer. But yeah, pick on the top side for 100 Thieves Academy. Oh, they also get the shove on the bot side. I don't know if that wave will be enough to take down the turret completely. It doesn't quite look like the turret will fall down, but that's got to be like 1, maybe 2 autos away from falling. So 100 Thieves Academy are finding their ways back into this game despite being at a goal deficit. They got more dragons, they got more kills, and they are showing heart, and that they're not just going to, lay down and die and allow Immortals to win out here. So let's get a replay of how Pretty almost outplayed this.
Oh, that's 2 spells, right? QE didn't have the W up, and then if he had R right away, I think he might have been able to even quickly kill Kenby before he even presses the ultimate. Just more Syndra things, but we're back at the dragon fight looking for the setup here, and there's some good collective or completed items on the side of IMT. I think Keith can actually be a huge player here from just being such a high burst champion against squishies, because the 100 Thieves lineup, while it does have these 2 tanks of Ornn and Leona that do so much of the engage, you have 3 incredibly squishy picks that someone like Jhin can pop and force them to burn Kindred ultimate or all sorts of other spells. So I'm looking at Keith if IMT is to actually hold on to this lead and turn it into a win against 100 Thieves' eventual scaling.
See, the problem with that, though, is Keith is equally as squishy, and we saw what happens when Ryoma hits 1 bubble. So it pressure's on for Keith here to dance around. You got those Swifties, you got the Jhin movement speed, so put in those dancing shoes, man. Dodge those skill shots. I also think that, again, just if we're looking at pure DPS, the build that Tapoon is going, plus Potluck, plus Pretty, that's really going to be the core of getting through the front line, because Jin does struggle with those tanks. So if Poom and Tenacity force these engages, we got to still rely on this Syndra, this control mage in the mid lane, this burst mage, but maybe they just catch out Kenby. Lambert Sprite does go down. Immortals just instantly pulling the trigger right there, forcing out a very key ultimate seconds before Dragon spawns.
That's a huge move there. And now, well, they're still thinking about holding down this territory, so 100 Thieves is just, nah. We could beeline somewhere else. We could just think about going to the Baron and setting up Vision there, because anything that is a fight without the Kindred ultimate is not a good idea right now.
Just Vision control around that area, giving over the Dragon. That's really rough for 100 Thieves Academy, because they were so close to getting towards that Dragon Soul, but it's not backbreaking because, again, we have highlighted they can scale, they can be patient with this game, and they don't have to overforce anything, but maybe they might just find a pick here onto Pretty. Has the ultimate available, and Kenby does not, but Pretty will maybe go down to the burn, and it's just going to be enough. Kenby finds a kill in the jungle.
Oh, that was so close, and it's only 30 seconds of the death timer, so they're not able to do much around Baron despite their cooldowns being able to come back up. But taking down the Syndra, I think, just is a vote of confidence, because she's that one champion that can also pop these squishies very quickly. If you can continue to stifle her burst, she's no longer going to be able to one-shot you with the ultimate, just like you saw right there. Right, the redemption did help, but she was not able to have enough burst. She didn't have enough orbs to burst Kenby on her own.
And I don't even think that was Kenby looking for a kill. That was just Kenby looking for the mark on the Gromp. But he said, all right, I'll take the gold from Pretty instead. Getting a nice little assassination there on the Kindred. Now 3, 1, and 4. This is the Kenby that we saw last year in Academy show up, absolutely stomping junglers left and right. I think the 100 Thieves Academy are setting themselves up fantastically for this late game and can really look to continue scaling, continue hitting these big item power spikes. They're at 2 items now, so if they get a big kill here, they have the marksmen to actually rush down Baron and the tanks to tank up the damage.
Oh, Baron is absolutely nothing to either of these teams. It is paper. You got so much damage. I'm surprised they're not looking to play around it a little bit more. It's just such a high-risk move that usually when you see that, both teams feel confident in their approach to the game. They're fine with what's going on, and now they're looking to catch the Yona, who's half HP.
Yeah, still very tanky, and Tapoon actually takes a huge chunk of damage in response right there. So 2 frontliners from each teams are now majorly chunked. We'll see if there are any fights that actually happen. Called Forge does come through. Can Tenacity find it onto 2 members? It's just the frontliners, though. It's Joey and Tapoon. That's not the members they want to focus their abilities on, but I guess they will anyway. Pretty on the flank.
Wow.
Syndra flanking, not the play there, Pretty. Kenby will take another kill onto the mid laner. And they might just chase down for more here. The sleep lands onto Tapoon. There we go. Andy Bandy jumps in. Joey's just hiding in the bush. He's good. He's out.
That worked. Oh, man. The Kenby. All right, you saw what happened, though. Like, it's already doomed. Kenby is one-shotting Pretty, and he used his entire rotation and was not able to get past the Kindred. Didn't even force the ultimate onto that one. When that's happening, you're in so much trouble, Kangas. They're looking to maybe answer this Baron here. Pollock has flash, but no smite, so the threat of a steal is up to Spells or someone else.
Teleport coming in from 100 Thieves Academy. Poom just buying time on the front line. And you got to worry about Zoe bubbles as well. Zoe paddle stars. Here's the engage coming in from Joey. Maybe they can force something. That's a lot of AoE damage. That's a lot of burst coming in from Keith and Potluck. That's 1, that's 2 down, that's 3. They get the Baron, but Immortals Academy will slaughter them in return. 100 Thieves do not come out on top from that play. That's a quadra kill for Potluck. And Immortals Academy are right back in it.
Oh, yeah, back in it. The driver's seat in it. It almost was just a dream that 100 Thieves had a bit of a lead, that had a scaling comp, and took the Baron now, because they are going to crash these 2 waves to these 2 turrets and might be able to just get an inhibitor off this push with everybody grouping up around the mid lane. Nope. I'm just going to take a quick reset and plan for the Dragon. It looks like we're in for a very long game. All these teams prioritizing the major objectives.
I just cannot. We at the end of this week, we need to make a montage. We need to talk to production and say how many times has a Rel made that exact same play at Baron? Because I swear I saw that at least twice yesterday as well. Everyone's grouped up around this big objective, and Rel just. This is where she's better than the Leona, because obviously the Leona, like you said, all those things, she can engage from range, she doesn't have to full commit with that ultimate. But if Rel can find the right ult, it's basically like 3 Orianna ults in one, just without the damage. She's got an AoE knockup, another AoE pull, and an AoE stun, and that's what Joey did, just chain CCing 100 Thieves Academy right there, allowing Keith and Potluck to pump out that damage. You love to see it. Immortals Academy get more turrets for it, more gold lead for it, and now they're positioned well for this dragon, trying to shove out 100 Thieves Academy in their mid lane, prevent them from walking up.
Whoa, insta ultimate there from Kindred.
Yeah, Lamb's Restraint does go down, so now 2 ultimates are used. Immortals can just walk back up. They didn't commit anything for that. Just Potluck's ult, I guess Keith as well with the curtain call, but still they have full priority of this dragon area, and 100 Thieves Academy, suddenly that dragon scaling win condition looking a little harder to reach, as Immortals Academy will find themselves on Dragon Soul Point.
He's got an Infinity Edge and the Collector, but we're going to look at the Baron fight first, because IMT is just thinking, all right, we do have the teleport, we can do this, and then Rel does so much with the Zhonya's as well to buy time, and then it's just too easy. This was a really good TP there out of Pretty to cut off the route, because the Gnar also teleported into this fight, by the way, but he just went to push into the mid lane, because he was not needed.
That was the flank that Pretty was hoping for in that mid lane fight, but this time he at least pulled it off. He's like, guys, I got him. They got the retreat path. They got nowhere to go. But that was Potluck providing the damage right there. You highlighted the Infinity Edge. Collector completed. Gale Force. This Graves is hitting like a truck right now. Those shotgun shells are doing damage to this front line. I was a little concerned when you see this Jhin picked up. Typically struggles against taking out these tanks, but Potluck is not having that problem at this point in the game, despite the fact that Tenacity did even go towards that Randuin's Omen build. Still just shredding him like paper, and now they can look for even more and invade onto the red buff. 100 Thieves Academy, full defensive plays from this point forward. Actually, right as I say that, they use Call to Forge God to engage here onto Joey, trying to burst down the Rel. They do find him, but will it be enough? Tapoon, now the new front line, now on the re-engage here, and look at Keith and Potluck's damage. You're just able to pump it out. Not going to be enough to actually take down Tenacity, though, despite free firing onto that Ornn. I just highlighted it, and right afterward, Ornn says, nah, I still am a tank, Angus, don't worry.
They were able to jump the Rel first. They blew everything for her, and actually were able to just win the fight despite Kendi not having his ultimate. That would have been really a one-sided affair if Kindred was just barely able to get onto that one. And funnily enough, that was actually the same location. Very similar fight to the very first way we started this game, guys. It looks like that's an area of just high action for both these teams. 100 Thieves is red side jungle.
Yeah, they definitely put in the scrim work. Their red side defense is out of this world, Crumb. So let's get another look at that. Yeah, it's just everything on Joey.
And a big problem there is that Pretty's actually cut off. He's at the Kruk camp, and it's just barely out of range. So he's not able to join the rest of the squad to do much. So the positioning was initially try to pincer the, pincer into the red buff from multiple sides, but just didn't pan out. And that's another time where Kindred Ultimate is not going to be available for these fights. IMT have done a spectacular job in baiting that out and taking a fight and just every time going into it with an advantage.
Almost time to pick Darren to Ryoma, but because Kindred ult was used, don't actually find it, and there's really not much to take other than just jungle camps, but I guess that's a good enough use of their time anyway at this point. There's no neutral objectives. Their only focus will be on turrets and just starving out Kenvi of any more stacks of Kindred marks, any more farm to get towards item power spikes. Still hasn't even completed that third item, going for that Infinity Edge, but will be a little bit longer. Maybe after this camp cleared, we'll have to see. But Immortals, you're right, Crumbs. They have this killer mentality, man. When they see the play, they go for it. And what surprises me so much for this early in the season, they go for it as a team. It's together that they actually find the plays.
That's the name of the game, League of Legends. Go for it together. Here's another fight.
Yeah, they just re-engage right away. They get flash out of Ryoma, and now they turn their attention onto Poom. It's a trade of supports. Both will go down. So less frontliners for both options. If you're under Thieves Academy, though, you're feeling really good about that one. It seems like when they can take Joey out early on, the rest of the fight usually can go in their favor. But this is now Immortals Academy on the inside track for this Baron.
That Graves and Kindred hit so hard. This is a jungler's world. Both of these picks are obliterating the competition. The double Infinity Edge marksmen are doing maybe more damage than the regular ADs for both of these squads, which is interesting development because usually you didn't actually have this much of a focus for critical damage from the jungle, but with these two, it seems to be the way to build it almost every single game now, and it does so much damage.
It's a treat to watch, Crumbs. And Kenvi just completed Infinity Edge now, so going to be doing even more damage in this next fight. But I also want to highlight just the fact how good Potluck's been navigating this Graves out the fight. Yet to die. Same with Keith as well, but when you're 1-0-9, it's a little less exciting than the 8-0-3 Graves. Potluck having an absolute statement of a game right here. After, I mean, people have been critical of Potluck in the past, saying, you know, he's been in Academy for a while. When is he going to really show up and show, yes, I'm worth it in Academy, but also able to make that next step into LCS? He showed a lot of promise, but when's he really going to step up? And it might just be right now, but Immortals, right as I say it, do get engaged on. They lose their mid laner immediately. Tapoon in a lot of trouble as well. Can go Mega here very shortly, but Tenacity just flashes over the wall, trying to corral them into their top turret. Re-engage from Joey, trying to save Tapoon. It will be a sacrifice of the support, and 100 Thieves Academy will claim this Baron.
And they got engaged on when IMT was actually split kind of. For half a second, it looked like Keith and Potluck were thinking about starting the Baron to solo it. Maybe two-man it, go for that play while the rest of 100 Thieves figured out what was happening. And they did not want to waste any time. They immediately engaged, and they got the Dragon as a consolation prize. Lose the flash as well, but
Potluck! He tried to collateral damage over the wall. Didn't quite make it, but did have the flash at least. But Dragon Soul for Baron trade at the end of the day, that's actually still pretty good from Immortals Academy to even it out in that way. They lost a couple kills, but they don't actually lose too much more for it other than that Baron and this middle turret. For the Dragon Soul, I think you take that mostly just to deny it away from 100 Thieves, because that would be terrifying to do with Dragon Soul with their composition. The game can still go either way here, Crumbs. This is really living up to expectations. Already looking like one of the longest games that we're going to have here. I believe that yesterday we did hit a 42-minute long game, if I'm remembering correctly. But this one poised to go longer.
And we're not complaining because we actually have things that warrant the game going long. The compositions make sense for them to want to go to long. The teams are playing according to what objectives are spawning. They're not really rushing into anything. So I think this is a fine game to be one of our longest thus far, just because of the way that we got there.
I'm having a lot of fun with the team compositions as well. There's a lot of crazy team fights here, just with the way that they're playing out, and a lot of interesting narratives to track, because I was hyped on Pretty at the beginning of the game, Crumbs, and not to, you know, flame any of the players currently playing, but there's been a noticeable dip in performance towards the mid and late game, or at least in just KDA, which, you know, those aren't always the master of all stats, but Pretty still has the opportunity to make these big game-winning plays. But when you go for the Banshee's Veil, you go for the Seraphs, this isn't that hyper burst kind of build that I was expecting out of a Syndra.
She fell behind. She got focused on by 100 Thieves and never really came back. And that's what happens when you build these burst champions from a deficit. You really don't afford the death caps, the void staffs. You're just sitting there trying to survive, buying Banshee's Veil and hoping that you didn't get picked off, so that when somebody jumps you, you can no longer delete them. You're really kind of a wave clear stun button. Unfortunately, it's just going to be the way that Pretty is probably going to have to play the rest of this game out, with a utility mindset and not one of hard bursting somebody else down, because his damage is just too easy to mitigate, whether it's exhaust from Ryoma, Kaisa ultimate, or Kenvi just one-shotting her. Syndra needs to protect Potluck first and foremost.
Well, I'm also going to say, you know, the AP damage would be nice against a composition that has currently built pretty much zero, actually zero MR across all of their items. So Great, I'm telling you, Rabadons, it's a great item, man. Just funnel some gold onto this guy. Maybe he can make the plays happen here. Because the AD focus from Potluck, from Tapu, and from Keith, it's starting to fall off. They're not doing the damage to the front line anymore, and we've seen Tenacity and Poom just kind of free walking around, providing CC for their team, providing control for their team in these last couple of team fights. And Immortals Academy, late game is not where I expected their composition specifically to really shine. It was in that transition to the mid game into the late game where they can control these objectives. So they succeeded in getting that Dragon Soul. Now can they close it out here, because the Baron's down and 100 Thieves Academy didn't get all that much for it. They really just got that one turret mid lane. I believe they got that tier 2 turret on the top side as well. So Immortals Academy back to basically a state of normalcy here. What can they do to ensure that they don't lose this game?
Well, more important than anything is to group now. You're no longer thinking about split pushing. Whoa, Gale Force.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that plan too. I like that approach, Keith. You know, he had the answer for me. He was like, we just go in. That's how we win this game.
You just don't want to be away from your teammates. You saw how quickly they can get killed before you are able to receive any help. You can be just in the same screen, the same half screen as your ally, but if you're not in range to help them when they get jumped, it's too far away. So you see that they're just all so clustered now.
Oh, the Forge got used. Andy Benny goes in. Joey with the engage as well, but look at this damage coming from Immortals Academy. 100 Thieves Academy did not want that fight. They thought they had the engage, but they go in on only the front line. Curtain call pulled. Now the chase down from Immortals Academy. Kenby just trying to buy time to Lamb's respite. Not going to be enough. That's the triple kill to Pretty. Baby, you're coming back in the game. I knew you could do it. As Ryoma, the only remaining member of 100 Thieves Academy. This could be game, though, Crumbs. Oh, wait, the snipe onto Keith.
Wait, what?
The kill will be traded back. That might stop the game-ending push.
No, it's TP. No way. I think with the teleport, this is a split pushing Gnar. You have so much damage. I think they have it.
We'll see. They got to get through 2 Nexus turrets as well. Immortals Academy, do they commit to the push? Tapoon's just going to tank up the turret. They say, yes, I think that this is game. All right, Crumbs. I was getting excited about it, but at the end of the day, Immortals Academy do find the win against 100 Thieves Academy off of an explosive fight in that mid lane that 100 Thieves actually opted into. What a game 2 to start off your season.
And it's the same 2 players, Kangas, the same 2 players that Pretty was highlighting, that we saw popping off in the Academy, that popped off in the LCS. It's Potluck and Joey, the jungle support duo of coming up from Academy, of being grown by Immortals, is continuing to be a bit of a menace.
Yeah, Joey had some insane engages throughout that game. I was very critical, saying, why go for the Rel when the Leona was on the table? I think we saw multiple times during that game why Joey liked the Rel more than the Leona, just because of that insane AoE CC that you could provide during those team fights, locking multiple members down. You pair that with Poon's Mega Nars chaining that CC. And even though we didn't see like that many crazy CC combos between those two, just having that versatility and ability to take those team fights at many times during the game, and then just outplaying with the damage output of Potluck, Keith. Pretty came in at the very end. You earned that triple kill. Congratulations. No one built MR, so expectations were pretty high. But overall, Immortals Academy still showing that, yeah, they're coming out the gate swinging right now.
I'm excited for this team because not a lot of people were excited about them for last year. So seeing that, hey, they took what was a sad year and made it into one where they can be proud of, or at least so far, and people are receptive to it, is really exciting because of the pieces that were kept from that first year, the year that we didn't really feel was their best. And now, hey, those pieces might actually be really good, and every day we get to see a continuation of, are players really bad, or are they just not given the right resources?
It's specifically Potluck. That's a player that I'm the most excited for, that he was able to have a pop-up performance here against Kenby, one of the most hyped-up junglers newer to the Academy scene, and saying, nope, give me Graves, give me power farming, give me a slow early game, and we will just ramp up and somehow beat the late game scaling composition past, I don't even know what the timer was at the end of there. It must have been close to 40 minutes, if not past 40 minutes there. But it's we can highlight Immortals and how well they play, but I do want to touch on 100 Thieves Academy a little bit there towards the end. It felt like things at all times in that game, they were never out of control fully. Like, it was never too much for them to come back from, even though they had slight goal deficits. They got that first blood. They kind of slowed it down a little bit, but they had the scaling composition. But then at the end there, they just engage onto the front line. They engage onto Tapoon and Joey. out of all the members of Immortals Academy. So I don't know whose call that was at the end there, but 100 Thieves, they got to be kicking themselves thinking we had the opportunity to actually clench that one out and come out with the victory. So what lessons should they take away from this game going into next week?
I think a lot of the things that plagued 100 Thieves had to do with teamwork, whether it was the dives in the bottom lane, or rotations before Dragon, or even that Baron. To me, that Baron was a big moment when they secured it, got wiped, lost it, and then lost all the lane pressure, which proceeded to be the pressure for Dragon that then lost them the soul. So for me, I would focus a ton on that objective from the side of 100 Thieves to make sure that either we don't go for it, or if we do, we respawn differently.
All right, well, you gave them their homework. We'll see if they're able to make corrections going into next week. But we got more games ahead of us today. Crumbs are going to send it over to a short break before we're back for FlyQuest versus Dignitas Academy. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.